First, I want to thank Chairman Brady and the members over at the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you very much, Kevin. This hearing will be an opportunity to examine how pro-growth tax reform will help us create jobs and grow our economy. This is something I heard about last week as I toured businesses in the 1st District in Wisconsin, talking to small business leaders. Everywhere I went, they talked about how our tax code is a source of constant frustration, and it's clearly time for a change. For us and for the Trump administration, this means lowering tax rates for hardworking Americans, a simpler tax code so families can fully and finally understand their taxes, slashing business tax rates so businesses can compete on a level playing field, encouraging companies to create jobs and make things here in America rather than overseas, and reining in the Internal Revenue Service so that it actually works for the taxpayer, not the other way around. This is how we create jobs and reach our economic potential as a country. So we're looking forward to this hearing tomorrow. We're looking forward to moving forward on this legislation. Remember, it's been 31 years since we last reformed the tax code. It was the year I got my driver's license. The opportunities like this come around only once in a generation. So if we're serious about letting Americans keep more of their paychecks, if we're serious about bringing jobs back home, bringing manufacturing back home, then we have got to reform this tax system and seize this moment. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. As you heard from Chairman Brady and from the Speaker, as the committees continue to work about creating jobs in America and growth for all Americans in Ways and Means. Also on the floor this week, we have other bills. John F. Kennedy, as President, proclaimed this week to be National Police Officers Week. And we all owe a great deal of debt to all of our officers who work every single day, not knowing whether they'll come back or not. We share in the rewards from safe streets, neighborhoods, the lives that we live freely, and they become role models for our children and for others. But in 2016, 118 police officers died in the line of duty. That's 118 fathers, mothers, daughters, sons, and friends. And we want to thank them for their service and for their sacrifice. So this week on the floor, we'll have two major bills. The Probation Officer Protection Act by Dave Reichert, former sheriff, and Thin Blue Line Act by Vern Buchanan. We will also want to make sure our law enforcement have all the tools to be able to work in a modern society as well. So last night we had passed the Strengthening State and Local Cyber Crime Fighting Act to help train law enforcement on cyber attacks. More than 300,000 machines just recently in 150 countries were attacked. Also, if you watch what we'll have on the floor today, Will Hurd's, the IT, modernizing government. We spend $80 billion a year on IT in government. 80% of that is legacy programs. If we modernize government, we will create a more efficient, effective, and accountable government for all Americans. Those are just some of the items that you'll see pass the floor this week. I yield back.
I applaud Chairman Brady in his effort to start the process of tax reform so we can actually lower rates for families, to put more money back in the pockets of hardworking families who know that our taxes are too high already and want to get our economy moving again and actually get growth and bring those companies that have left America back to our country so we can grow our economy here. I think it's important that this week we are recognizing Police Officers Week. In Louisiana last week, we lost 10 officers in the line of duty. And 3 of those were officers who were killed in Baton Rouge on one day in July of last year. One officer who is still battling from that tragic day is East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Deputy Nick Tullier. I went and visited with Nick Tullier and his family last year as he was battling in the hospital, and he still battles to this day. It's a really tough battle, but he's a tough man and he's got a tough family. And so Nick remains in our prayers, just like all those other officers who died in the line of duty, standing up and protecting our communities. So I think it's important that we all remember those police officers this week as we pay special tribute to them and their families. One other person who we are standing up for this week, joined with our conference chair, Kathy McMorris Rogers, and other members in introducing a bipartisan bill called the Steve Gleason Act. This is a legislation that we passed 2 years ago when Medicare back in 2014 made changes that actually took speech-generating devices away from people who were battling Lou Gehrig's disease and other diseases that are debilitating. And so we actually needed an act of Congress. We tried to work with the administration in 2014, and they wouldn't reverse that bad policy, so we passed a law in 2015 so that nobody can be denied their voice if they're battling a disease like ALS. And yet that law is set to expire next year, so we're not going to sit back and wait. And yesterday I joined with Steve Gleason in New Orleans and holding a press conference to highlight this even more. And I know Chairwoman McMorris-Rodgers has done the same thing in highlighting the fact that we're not going to let this law expire. We're actually going to stand up for people with ALS. Steve Gleason is a true inspiration to the people in New Orleans and all around the country. His motto is no white flags. And what that means is you never give up. And no matter what your life's limitations might be, you don't let it hold you back from achieving your full potential. And with the Steve Gleason Act renewed permanently, everybody will have a voice, even those who are battling debilitating diseases.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Well, as the speaker said, we have a once in a generation opportunity to enact meaningful tax reform. You think about what that means to every person in this country. It's an issue in which we've been working on for months. We've been talking about it for years, and this is our opportunity to get it done. We have the administration, we have the House, we have the Senate, and a president that knows that this is a priority and wants to move it this year. Americans need tax reform. Our system is way too complicated. Something is wrong when hard work is punished in our country. That is not the American way. It's time, you think about all the time, we just finished, tax day was on April 15th, and you think about all the time that Americans spend filling out their taxes. And that is precious time that they could be spending with their families or working on growing their business. That's what we want them to be focused on. American people have been calling for this reform. This week we will have a major hearing on tax reform. I look forward to getting it out of the House, getting it enacted, because this is the way that we grow our economy, create jobs, spur innovation. I also wanted to say thanks to the men and women who serve us in local law enforcement day in and day out around this Capitol and all around this country. And as was mentioned, this is Police Week, and it's important that we take some time to thank them and to reflect on those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. For me, representing Eastern Washington, it's Deputy Sheriff Michael Estes, who gave his life, but we will not ever forget him and his service. Thank you.
Questions? Yeah.
Ryan, thank you. Do you believe that President Trump may have been trying to influence or intimidate former FBI Director James Comey when, according to this memo, he urged him not to follow through
Yeah,
with the
well-
investigation of Michael Flynn? And secondly, do you still have the same level of confidence in President Trump that you had on inauguration?
Look, there's been a lot of reporting lately. I think that requires close examination. Let me tell you what I told our members just this morning. We need the facts. It is obvious there are some people out there who want to harm the president, but we have an obligation to carry out our oversight regardless of which party is in the White House. And that means before rushing to judgment, we get all the pertinent information. The House Oversight and Government Reform Committee has appropriately requested this memo. And I'm sure we're going to want to hear from Mr. Comey about why, if this happens as he allegedly describes, why didn't take action at the time. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. What I told our members is, now is the time to gather all the pertinent information. Our job is to be responsible, sober, and focus only on gathering the facts. That is what Congress does in conducting oversight of the executive branch.
So do you want to see Comey testify in an open hearing?
I will leave it to the committees that are doing these investigations. Just remember, there's an investigation occurring at the FBI. There's an investigation in the House, and there's an investigation in the Senate. So we've got 3 investigations going on. I'm not going to micromanage or armchair quarterback investigations. But the point is this. We can't deal with speculation and innuendo. And there's clearly a lot of politics being played. Our job is to get the facts and to be sober about doing that.
And do you still have the same
Yeah.
level of confidence in
Speaker,
the
what about the
president?
political impact? Your members are on the ballot again in 2 years. Do you worry about some of the drip, or some of these controversies having an impact on
I don't worry about things that are outside of my control. I worry about things that are within our control, and that is whether or not we do what we are elected to do, which is to solve people's problems. That's the other thing I think I'd like to make. I think people in America turn on the TV and they think this is all that's happening. This is all we're doing and all we're discussing. That's just not the case. I want the American people to know that we're busy, hard at work, fixing their problems. You just heard from the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee talking about moving down the path of getting comprehensive tax reform done because we know that's really important to unlocking economic growth and competitiveness for American companies. The point I want to make here is, you've heard me say this before, we're going to walk and chew gum at the same time. We're going to keep doing our jobs. We're going to keep passing our bills. We're going to keep advancing our reforms that we were elected to advance while we do all these other things that are within our responsibility. And that's what we will be judged in 2018. Did we make people's lives better? Did we solve problems? Did we fix the problems that people are confronting in their daily lives? That, to me, is what matters most, and that is how we will be judged.
Given your ambitious agenda, have you considered or even identified what the point would be where the current trajectory of the White House is simply unsustainable to trying to actually get things done?
Look, the last thing I'm going to do is prejudge anything. I'm a person who wants to get the facts. That is our job, to be sober, to be dispassionate, and to get the facts and to do our jobs and follow the facts wherever they may lead. Craig, did you have one? I just want to go to the Wisconsin guy. Did you? Yeah.
You've been criticized and even lampooned for not exercising more independence from this president. How do you respond to that criticism?
We have 2 investigations in Congress going on right now with all things being Russia. We have another committee, the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, just now requesting these documents. So there is plenty of oversight that is being done. What we don't do is try to meet the facts within some 24-hour news cycle. What we do is dispassionately do our jobs and make sure that the investigations follow the facts wherever they may lead, and that obviously takes some time. I'll just say one more thing. There's an FBI investigation going on right now with all things related to Russia, done by the career professionals at the FBI, who are going to continue to be career professionals, and the acting director just said the other day that no one has tried to impede that investigation. So a lot of work is being done. That's the proper role of the legislative branch in conducting oversight of the executive branch, and we're not going to be trying to play to the crowd or try to meet timelines. We're going to do it the right way and follow the facts wherever they may lead. Thank you.
Time for